The sound hit the containment bay like a physical wall. 700 decibels of subsonic growl, engineered over 11,000 years by the Vraxthil Dominion to be the last thing any living creature ever heard. It had ended wars before a single shot was fired. It had made armored Kethari warriors collapse to their knees, vomiting from pure neurological panic. It was not a sound. It was a weapon. And Mara Okafor, strapped into an observation chair with a translator wire taped behind her ear, tilted her head, listened for exactly 4 seconds, and laughed. "Cute," she said. "My nephew's Roomba makes a scarier noise when it gets stuck under the couch." Silence fell across the bridge of the second grasp. 12 Vraxthil officers, predators, whose entire species had never once heard that sound mocked, stared at the small, unarmored human, currently the only warm-blooded thing standing between their empire and a war they were about to lose very, very badly. None of them understood yet what they'd just done. But 3 days earlier, none of this had even begun. 3 days earlier. Mara wasn't supposed to be on the negotiation team. She'd made that clear to Ambassador Solon exactly 4 times before liftoff. "I fix reactor couplings," she'd said, wrench still in her hand, grease on her jaw. "I calibrate exosuit gyros. I am not a diplomat. I have never once successfully negotiated my landlord down on rent." "You're the only technician cleared for the delegation's life support systems," Solon had replied, not looking up from her tablet. "And you speak conversational Vraxthil. That makes you useful. Sit in the back, say nothing, fix things if they break." So Mara sat in the back of the shuttle in a jumpsuit 2 sizes too big, while the actual diplomats, 6 of them, silk, collared and rehearsed, prepared their opening remarks for the most dangerous species humanity had ever encountered. The Vraxthil Dominion controlled 41 star systems. They had never lost a first contact war. Their entire culture was built on a single, unshakable principle. Dominance is proven, never given. Every new species that entered Dominion space was tested, not with words, but with fear. If you flinched, you were subjugated. If you broke, you were absorbed. In 11,000 years, nothing had ever refused to flinch. Humanity didn't know that yet. That was about to become a very large problem. The second grasp was 3 kilometers of black armor and bioluminescent hull veins, shaped less like a ship and more like something that had once been alive and forgot how to stop growing. When it dropped out of slip space directly in front of the human delegation's cruiser, Ambassador Solon went pale. "That's not a warship," she whispered. "That's statement." Commander Threxa Volinor, apex caste and second-blooded of Clan House Vol, received the humans personally. She was 3 meters of segmented obsidian plating, mandibles that could shear through titanium, and eyes like twin dying stars. She did not offer a greeting. She offered a demonstration. "Before words?" Threxa said, her translator crackling with something that might have been amusement. "There must be understanding. You will learn what you are dealing with." The humans were led, not escorted, led, like livestock, into a containment observation bay. Mara came because she'd been assigned to check the bay's air scrubbers before the delegation entered, and nobody had told her to leave. That oversight was about to matter more than anyone realized. 3 walls of the bay were transparent alloy, looking into an arena where, moments earlier, restrained and heavily sedated, had stood a Kethari prisoner of war. A species the Dominion had conquered 4 centuries ago. The Kethari were massive, armored quadrupeds bred for war, and when the Vraxthil released the predator call through the arena's speaker array, that 400-kilogram warbeast folded like wet paper, screaming, clawing at its own skull. Ambassador Solon's translator visibly shook in her hand. "This is the sound of our victory," Threxa announced to the human delegation. "It is tuned to trigger the oldest fear response in any mammalian nervous system. Every species we have tested it on has broken. Today, humanity will understand its place." The speakers activated. The predator call detonated across the bay, and that's when Mara Okafor laughed. But no one, not the Vraxthil, not the ambassador, not even Mara herself, understood yet why the sound hadn't worked. Threxa's mandibles clicked in something dangerously close to confusion. In 11,000 years, no organic creature had ever remained conscious through direct exposure to the call, let alone spoken during it, let alone smiled. You did not flinch, Threxa said slowly. Should I have? Mara asked, genuinely curious. She popped the wire out from behind her ear and examined it. Not out of disrespect, but because engineers examine things when they're thinking. That was a nice bit of infrasound, layered under some distortion. Real punchy in the low end. But you built it to trigger primate startle reflexes and mammalian predator-avoidance circuitry, right? Fear of big teeth, fear of ambush, fear of the dark? Yes, Threxa admitted, because the Vraxthil valued brutal honesty above pride. Yeah, that tracks, Mara said. Humans haven't been afraid of that in about 40,000 years. We stopped being prey a long time ago. We're not scared of predators anymore, Commander. We became the thing predators got scared of. Ambassador Solon, still shaking, grabbed Mara's arm. Don't, she hissed. Don't provoke them. But it was too late. Threxa had gone very, very still. And among the Vraxthil, stillness was the loudest sound of all. You mock the call, Threxa said. I'm not mocking it, Mara said honestly. I'm just not scared of it. There's a difference. That difference nearly got the entire delegation killed. What happened next stunned every officer on the bridge. Threxa's second-in-command, a younger and far more volatile Vraxthil named Rixal, slammed his claw against the containment release. Then face something you should fear, he snarled, and the restraint field on a second holding cell, one the humans hadn't even noticed, dropped. Out stepped a Zhorak Ripper, 6 limbs, bioluminescent venom sacs pulsing along its spine, bred as a Dominion battlefield asset specifically because it hunted by sound, by heat, by the electrical signature of a beating heart. It was not sedated. It was starving. The humans scattered. Solon screamed for security. 2 of the diplomats fainted outright. Mara didn't move. Because she'd already clocked something the panicking room hadn't. The Ripper's holding cell had a secondary feed line running along the ceiling, still hooked to a nutrient delivery hose that hadn't been detached. Sloppy handling. Rushed release. Someone on the ship had made a mistake, and mistakes to an engineer were just problems waiting to be solved. As the Ripper lunged, Mara grabbed the loose hose, swung it hard into the creature's exposed gill slits, the one unarmored part of its whole body, which she'd only known about because she'd read the Dominion's own declassified bestiary during the 11-hour shuttle flight, because she got bored easily and always read the mission files nobody else bothered with. The Ripper shrieked, disoriented, and Mara didn't kill it. She didn't need to. She just yanked hard on the hose again, dragging the creature bodily back toward the open containment field and slammed the manual release with her boot heel. The field snapped shut. The Ripper hissed against the barrier, contained, silence again. Total silence. Mara straightened up, breathing hard, hose still in her hand, and looked at Threxa. Sorry, she said. Didn't mean to interrupt your demonstration. You were saying something about understanding our place? The bridge had gone quiet, but the biggest twist hadn't happened yet. Threxa should have been furious. Vraxthil law demanded blood for insolence, demanded the human be made an example of, demanded the delegation be reminded. Violently. Who held dominance here? Instead, Threxa did something none of her crew had ever seen her do. She lowered her head, a gesture Mara would later learn reserved only for warriors who had earned clan house recognition in single combat. You fought a Ripper with a feeding hose, Threxa said, and for the first time her translator carried something unmistakably close to respect. Unarmed, untrained, while your own people screamed and fled. I'm a mechanic, Mara said, shrugging. I fix things that are broken. That thing was loose. I put it back. No, Threxa said. You did not simply put it back. You diagnosed the failure of my own ship's containment protocol faster than my engineers did. You exploited an anatomical weakness you should not have known, and you did not scream. Vraxthil, humiliated, tried to salvage the moment. It is one soft creature's luck. Silence. Threxa didn't even look at him. 11,000 years, Vraxthil. 11,000 years. And no species has ever fixed our test instead of failing it. That was the moment the entire Dominion's strategy toward humanity quietly, irreversibly changed, but the biggest reveal of all was still coming. Ambassador Solon, recovering her composure, finally found her voice. Commander Volinor, on behalf of the human delegation, I apologize for. Do not apologize, Threxa cut in. Apologize for what? For surviving what should have killed her. For solving a problem my own crew failed to prevent? She turned back, to Mara, mandibles clicking in what almost looked like the Vraxthil equivalent of a smile. Tell me, small mechanic, what is your rank among your people? Mara blinked. I don't have a rank, I'm a technician. Grade 3, T, Threxa repeated slowly. And something shifted behind those dying star eyes. Not mockery this time, but genuine, dawning alarm. You are telling me your lowest-ranked crew member sent along to fix your ship's plumbing, disabled a ripper with her bare hands and mocked the predator call to my face. Yes? Threxa turned to her bridge crew, and for the first time in the recorded history of the Vraxthil Dominion, her voice carried something other than certainty. Recall the fleet, she said quietly. Cancel the subjugation directive. If this is what they send us to fix pipes, she paused, staring at the small human, still holding a hose like a weapon, still breathing hard, still very much unafraid. I do not wish to know what they send us to fight wars. The delegation left the second grasp 3 hours later, not as prisoners, not as subjects, but under a provisional treaty that no Dominion species had ever been offered on a first contact. Equals? Pending further evaluation, Ambassador Solon didn't speak until they were back aboard the human cruiser, safely in slipspace, the Dominion warship shrinking to a point of light behind them. You could have gotten us all killed, she finally said. I know, Mara admitted, finally letting her hands shake now that no one was watching. I was terrified the whole time. Solon stared at her. You laughed. You look completely calm. That's the thing about fear, Mara said quietly, staring out at the stars. It doesn't go away. You just decide it doesn't get to decide what you do next. Ambassador Solon didn't have a response to that. Nobody on the ship did. 41 star systems belonging to the most feared empire in known space had just learned, in the space of one afternoon, that humanity's monsters had died out 40,000 years ago, and humanity had simply become something new instead. Something that didn't run. Something that fixed what was broken, laughed at what should have terrified it, and, quietly, without meaning to, rewrote every rule the galaxy thought it understood about dominance. The Vraxthil had spent 11,000 years perfecting the sound of fear. It took one human, one hose, and 4 seconds to make them realize they'd never actually tested anything at all.